Listen, just one more thing.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of Season 8, Episode 3 of Colombo, Sex and the Married Detective. First broadcast on the 3rd of April 1989 on ABC. Once again directed by James Frawley and written by veteran TV writer Gerald L. Ludwig, the episode begins with a radio being tuned to a talk radio station where sex therapist Dr. Joan Allenby, played by Lindsay Krause, is presenting her regular show. After the show is finished, she's joined by lover David Kincaid, played by Stephen Macht, who also happens to play the dad in The Monster Squad, one of my favourite films and one I've previously reviewed on this channel. As they head to her office, her PA, Cindy, and colleague, Dr. Walter Neff, played by Julia Montgomery and Ken Lerner respectively, gossip about Allenby and Kincaid's relationship. While in her office, Dr. Simon Ward, played by Peter Jurassic, comes in with a medical journal he wants her to read, while also berating her for having a radio show that demeans the profession, years before Niles would do the same to Frasier.
You see, the thing is, it was just one phone call. I mean, how can anyone make a sound judgment about another person on the basis of one phone call?
Remind me again what it is you do for a living?
These are our main characters in this episode, and despite being introduced at a rapid pace, they're all fairly well defined, without it being explicitly stated who they are. Neff is attracted to Allenby, Cindy is attracted to Kincaid, and Ward seems to have animosity towards Allenby, although appears to respect her professionally. It's not even immediately clear who the murderer or the victim is. Allenby is off on a business trip, but the plane is cancelled, so planning to catch a new flight in the morning, she heads back to her office, where she catches Cindy and Kincaid using some of her therapy advice. She's initially shaken by this revelation, but rather than confront them on it there and then, she leaves quietly and catches the next plane for her trip. No doubt she will put this down to experience and break up with Kincaid when she returns, thus bringing the episode to a close somewhere around the 10-minute mark. Of course not. She instead acts as if nothing happened, suggests her and Kincaid engage in some role play, disguises herself as a raven-haired temptress called Lisa, then shoots him when they go to her office/bedroom, using her appearance at a company party as an alibi, where she makes sure everyone sees her as herself and disguised as Lisa, giving the impression they are two separate people. For me, this whole setup is drawn out a little too long, as this all takes about 10 minutes of screen time to set up, and is largely made up of glamour shots of Allenby sexifying herself. I'm also not too enamoured with the use of saxophone music to enhance the sexiness. It was a cliché even in 1989, and I find it to be the least sexy of all musical instruments, save for the bagpipes, obviously. The main purpose of this extended setup is to show the many different people she interacts with as Lisa, fooling the ones she knows and convincing the ones she doesn't into believing she's this mysterious cold-blooded femme fatale. She returns to the party and changes back into her normal clothes, inconspicuously passing by a creepy guy that was stalking Lisa, further highlighting this as mission accomplished. The next day she goes into work and the police are there, as she pretends she's devastated. As she enters the lift, Colombo joins her. They stand in silence, and there's a funny bit of business with him and his cigar. When they both get into the office, he introduces himself. Then he allows her to see the crime scene and tells her about the suspect they have. He then describes what she wanted the police to believe happened, but caveats it with,
"At least that's the way it seems."
He's then shocked to find out that the room they're in is for assisting couples having sexual problems. And I don't think Columbo has been this uncomfortable since he saw the nude model in Suitable for Framing.
They interrupted Rembrandt. Why shouldn't they interrupt me? Yeah, what is it?
Columbo asks Allenby to look over Kincaid's effects and asks her if she notices anything missing. She doesn't notice his keys are missing, and it's not immediately clear what Columbo is up to here. But he's up to something. She leaves and he goes back to inspecting the ashtray, which had fascinated him earlier. It's interesting to watch him come at this from a slightly different angle than is normal, where it appears as if he has very little to go on and he doesn't have any obvious suspicion of Allenby. He isn't picking away at all the loose threads just yet, but seems to be starting to get the feeling something is not quite right. Dr. Neff spends no time putting the moves on Allenby, but he's interrupted by Columbo as he has more questions for her. She attempts to throw him off guard by being very open with him about her relationship with Kincaid. The way Falk plays Columbo in this episode is particularly highlighted in this scene, as he acts intensely bashful and seems to choke on the word sex every time he has to say it.
We had great sex.
Okay.
We then get the most bizarre scene we've had in a Columbo episode so far, as he goes to the venue where the previous night's party was, only to join in with a tuba player teaching school kids about instruments. That's not the bizarre bit. That's quite charming, if completely irrelevant to the episode. What's bizarre is how this transitions to a full, accompanied song with shots of a public fountain. Before returning to Colombo. I have no idea why this scene is here. None of the reasons I can come up with really make sense at all in context of the episode. The brief instrumental interlude we had in the previous episode at least made sense in the context of the scene it was in, but this is quite baffling. As Columbo and the tuba teacher lead the kids around, Allenby turns up to retrieve her Lisa costume and bumps into Columbo just after she retrieves it. He's moved from asking about the price of shoes to handbags, and happens to want to see the briefcase she has hidden her Lisa costume in. This seems to be a coincidence, although Allenby tries to play it cool as she nonchalantly asks him to hold it for her as she retrieves something from the briefcase. Columbo manages to establish that Lisa was seen at the party, which confuses him, as he's now not sure how Kincaid met Lisa. He wasn't at the party. This looks to be Allenby's first mistake. She was so keen that everyone there see her as Lisa, and herself, even though it makes no sense for Lisa to be there, and it actually incriminates her more. Had she engineered it so that she arrived with Kincaid, got into a prearranged fight with him, then left with him dressed as Lisa, him playing along as part of the role play, she might have had a much stronger alibi. But this one is just starting to crack. Columbo's next stop is the bar where she actually met Kincaid, and the barman believes Lisa was a prostitute, based on their interaction. At Allenby's that evening, she is about to destroy the Lisa costume, but he's interrupted by Columbo to tell her what he's found out about Lisa and to have another encounter with the briefcase.
Oh, you kept this too close to the fire, man. It could have been scorched.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Which might be overdoing it a little, as it is almost turning into a farce. He's also got a revelation about the keys, which were left at the bar, which means they had no way to get into Allenby's office unless Lisa had a key. Once he's gone, Allenby goes to burn the Lisa costume, but pauses and has a change of heart. We start to delve into the psychology of this new identity. It's a little hackneyed to see her talk to herself as if Lisa is becoming a second personality, but I can live with it. Anyone who decides to commit an elaborate murder because her boyfriend slept with someone else clearly has some issues, and while it would have been nice to have that seeded through the episode a little more instead of the briefcase gags, it's not too bad. The next day, Columbo goes to see Allenby again and tells her they've found the gun, that it was purchased the day of the murder, and that various descriptions of Lisa are a little contradictory. All this pales in comparison to his next piece of evidence, as forensics have discovered the blood found at the scene is a different blood type to the saliva they got off the cigarette butt Lisa had left at the same scene, which means there must have been 3 people in the room. But the hairs found at the scene were from someone with a different blood type again, meaning that there were 4 people in the room, but the security guard only ever saw 1 woman. Now, what's interesting about this is that Columbo is talking about DNA evidence, which was around when the episode was made, but he says blood type, because a general audience would have no clue what DNA evidence was at this time, or how it worked, so they went with more commonly known terms. But it's interesting to see how things have changed in crime fiction, where DNA evidence use is now ubiquitous. The point of the scene, though, is to demonstrate the incongruity between what is supposed to have happened and what the evidence shows, and it does an excellent job of that. Columbo has a breakthrough from the creepy guy from the party who has come forward to tell them that he saw Lisa go into the ladies' toilets, but she never left, and none of the ladies that did leave were carrying anything like a package of clothes. Columbo does some real investigation work and discovers a small piece of tape under the sink where Allenby hid the costume. It's not enough evidence to prove anything, but it does help him formulate a theory which sees him rush to Allenby's clinic to root through her rubbish. He eventually finds what he was looking for, a tag from Allenby's coat that he noticed at the very start of the episode, but this scene is let down by the cliché of the foreign cleaning woman not being helpful as he looks for the correct piece of trash with some traditional ethnic music as a button to the scene.
You're a very nice lady.
Columbo takes the creepy witness to Allenby's house, and they apparently let themselves in as she arrives after them, much to her surprise. The creepy guy manages to be even more creepy as he describes what happens, and there's a very nice little gag here.
Could I bring you something to drink?
Sure. Could you manage some sparkling mineral water?
I think so. Same for you, Lieutenant?
Oh, no, thank you, ma'am. I'll just have some seltzer.
I think I can manage that, too.
He's clearly only been brought there to see if he recognises Allenby, which he doesn't, and which she deals with very competently. But then makes the mistake of getting dressed up as Lisa again, and makes sure she's seen at every bar she can find in an effort to muddy the waters, before she really does burn the outfit. As she's doing so, she gets a call from Sergeant Burke telling her Colombo has found Lisa in Allenby's own files, causing her to head directly to her clinic. Colombo is already there, and Allenby doesn't seem in the least bit annoyed that Colombo has been going through her confidential patient files on a whim. He hasn't, of course, he's only been pretending to in order to spring his trap. But her not being angry at this illegal search really took me out of the episode. I don't think it's something Columbo would do. I don't believe her reaction to it, and I don't think it's at all necessary to include, as it really has nothing to do with a gotcha. It's just an excuse to get her to the clinic. Columbo then takes her through all the issues he has with the crime scene as it was set for him. He then gets a call from Burke and tells Allenby that Lisa may be in the building, as he explains why the tag off her coat is significant, as she paid for it with a card on her business trip while also taking out large sums of cash. She becomes indignant and goes to leave, but is shocked by the silhouette of Lisa by the elevators. Columbo distracts her long enough for Lisa to disappear, making her believe that it was her guilty conscience, the telltale tart, if you will. Columbo asks her to go back to the therapy room where a mannequin has been dressed in a copy of Lisa's costume. Columbo has checked with the stores that Allenby bought Lisa's costume from, and they recognise Allenby. She then confesses all, including that she enjoyed being Lisa, more than she enjoyed being herself. Despite my many criticisms of this episode, I think there's a good story in there. It's just quite heavily buried beneath quite a bit of filler, some out-of-place humour, and huge amounts of appalling saxophone music. For a start, there are too many characters that add very little. Dr. Neff and Dr. Ward are played by fine character actors that are completely wasted in their limited scenes. So much so that the plot even addresses the fact that despite some motive, they obviously couldn't have done it, so why do they feel the need to confess their motives? Cindy is entirely a plot device and could have been anyone. Thematically, it would have made more sense if Kincaid had been cheating on Allenby with a sex worker. Perhaps he could have been a sex addict that Allenby thought she could cure, and, despite knowing of his compulsion, still felt the urge to kill him, while role-playing as a sex worker. It barely scratches the surface of any meaningful sex therapy due to it being a primetime show, and to be honest, I'm grateful for that. But Allenby doesn't particularly need to be a sex therapist for the story to work. It doesn't inform her character, her motive, or her killing method. At all, really. She says Lisa made her feel powerful and fearless, but she isn't portrayed as particularly weak to begin with. She's shown to be a confident and forthright person, fully in control of her sexuality. Had she been more meek, until she becomes Lisa, it would have been an easier sell. Had we had more than one scene of her really enjoying being Lisa, that might have been something. But as it is, it all feels a little undercooked and overdone. Burned on the outside, frozen in the middle. I'm also not sold on the gotcha. Could Columbo have found the 3 specific stores she purchased the costumes from in the city of Chicago, especially as she used cash? Seems unlikely. There are quite a lot of things very wrong with this episode, despite the strong performances. But the central idea of a woman disguising herself as someone else to commit the murder, then getting lost in that role, is a good one. Maybe not for Columbo, and not with this particular plot. So for me, this is another 2 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.